3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, officers and members, and welcome to the meeting of the Mid Sussex District Council Cabinet Grants Panel. I shall, without further ado, move on to the agenda. I am standing in as chairperson today, as Councillor Webster is unable to be here, and he sends his apologies. So the first thing is, I'd like to obviously appoint a vice chairman. I wonder if I could nominate Councillor John Belsey. Are you happy to stand?
Very happy, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor De Mere, happy with that?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So agenda item 1, to note substitutes in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 4, and I'd like to announce that Councillor De Mere is substituting for Councillor Webster. Item 2, to receive apologies of absence. As I've just said, apologies have been received from Councillor Webster, and we wish him all the best. 3, to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. I firstly have one to declare myself, which is in relation to agenda item 8, which involves the Bentswood Hub, which I chair the BCP, which is one of the 3 partners involved in the running of the hub. Colleagues, nothing from John? Nothing. Smashing, thank you very much. Moving on to confirm the minutes of the meeting of the panel held on 26th of September 22. Before we go on, I did note, and thank you Democratic Services for addressing this, that there was an error in the first 3 minutes, only a minor one. They've been amended. So it should read, number 1, to note substitutes, Councillor De Mere substituted for Councillor Belsey. To receive apologies for absence, it should read and will read, apologies were received from Councillor Belsey and no declarations were made under item 3. So, colleagues, any comments or concerns about those minutes? And if not, then we will proceed to an electronic vote to accept those minutes. For those listening, we're waiting for magic things to happen on the screen in front of us. I don't know if did you want to announce the outcome, or shall I do that from the chair? Okay, thank you very much. That is unanimously agreed. Thank you very much. So moving on to item 5, to consider any items that the chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. Number 6, to receive representations from the members of the council on the applications. I have not received any communications. Have any of my colleagues received anything they wish to bring to the meeting? Great, thank you. Rattling through the agenda. However, now on to substantive business. Item 7, the Microbusiness Grant Scheme. I'd like to introduce William Hawkins, Officer from Economic Development Team. Off you go, sir.
Thank you, Councillor. So this is the 4th meeting of the panel to discuss applications for the microbusiness grant funding. This report notes 8 applications for the panel's consideration. You'll note from the report there is 1 application for the apprenticeship grant, and there are 2 previous applicants noted within the Appendix B. However, in keeping with the criteria for the scheme, a suitable amount of time has passed since these applications were awarded, with Sussex Facilities Management being awarded in 2019 and Oolala having been awarded in 2017. Within the report itself, you'll note in paragraph 12, the officers have been trying to obtain further information from the business for the application from Pera Midtown. As such, to this date, they have not yet provided that information. So with that in mind, I'd like to suggest that this application instead be deferred to the next panel to give us time to resolve that. Lastly, with the panel's permission, I'd like to also amend the application request for Sarowski Architects. I believe they're listed in there currently as a grant request of £1,654. Following discussion with the business, they'd like to amend that to increase it to £1,833, owing to an increased project cost they've noted since they put the application in. There's no material change to the application itself, it's just costings. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you very much. I'll let my colleagues go first before I launch on my little. Colleagues, any comments on the report or questions about any of the suggested grants? Councillor Demir.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I had one question on Sussex Facilities Management. It says they've had a previous application, but this project has developed marketing materials for new service. Now, it could be me. I couldn't see what the new service was. And before I make a decision, I'd like to know what those are.
Yes, so in their application, they note that the service is, now forgive me, I'm not sure of the specifics myself, but I think it's, the company itself would go to the business and they'd help them amend their current sort of facility scheme in regards to sort of eco and other things as well. So it's an in-house service rather than consultancy support, which they do at the minute. So it's more of a personal support rather than facilities management, whereby they sort of sell packages of works to businesses. That makes sense?
Not really. Sorry, Mr.
No,
Chairman.
not at all. No. Ask away, Councillor Demir, if you want
Sorry.
something clarified.
You mean it's a personal service
Yeah.
for some of their staff?
So the company itself does facilities management. So
Yes.
they help businesses in all things facilities and running of their sort of not only business but the premises. So what they note in their application is in-person assessments of individuals, houses and businesses to help them reduce energy consumption and provide them with sort of energy-saving in-house measures.
So this is a new service that
The
they're
new
putting out.
service that the business
Fine,
will provide
that's
to
fine.
customers.
Thank you.
Smashing, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Belsey.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not, I mean, just a question of men do Pilates, just as an example. Just it did get me just thinking about the wider ethos of the businesses that we are granting and sort of inclusivity and things like that. And I'm sure probably that men are underrepresented in the general Pilates population. But I was just, it did make me wonder what sort of, whether we would ever turn down an application due to them sort of focusing on a particularly maybe not inclusive part of the market. So just be grateful. Any thoughts on that? Thanks.
Yeah, I think the concern is valid, and if there was any evidence that they were, either discriminating on a group of people or just servicing one group of people, then absolutely yes. In the case of Men Do Pilates, I'm aware that this is just one sort of branch that the business owner sort of works on. I know that they also do sort of private and individual Pilates, not classes, but services as well. However, this one branch of their business does just cater to men on this case. However, if there was any discrimination that was keeping people out, that we would of course not only inform the panel but take that into our considerations as well.
Thank you.
Smashing. I'll reel off some of mine now, some general comments. Angie's Nails and Beauty Apprentice, excellent. That's the stuff we absolutely love to employ. Pilates, my colleagues has asked. Sussex Facilities Management has been asked. As you know, Swarovski Architects, Councillor Webster wanted me to point out, and he's quite right, the pleasure of seeing a good application from the northern end of the district. Seasons art class, just wanted to kind of understand, for example, what is their income stream? Do they sell lessons? I'm trying just to make sure that this is a business grant rather than a communities grant.
Yes, so the business main form of revenue is by selling art classes. Most notably, they sell a course of 14 weeks, as far as I understand, which a customer would sign up to, pay the business and sort of enroll themselves on that course almost. So that's their sort of main form of revenue. They do community things as well. I know that they're involved in some community exhibitions, but this is just separate to their sort of main revenue generating work.
Fantastic, that suits me fine. Just got two more. Ooh la la, renovation of the new store. This is a little bit of a technical matter. You may not be able to answer it now, but often when companies move into a new store, as part of the leasing arrangements, they get a rent-free period, which is there designed to help them with the costs and the fit-out. So I just wondered whether you had any sight of that, because obviously if they're getting a dispensation from the landlord to pay for that, and then we're giving them a grant to do it, then it's happy days. So I wonder if you could clarify it for me, please.
Yep, so the application notes that the business is relocating, and they're relocating into the Orchards in Haywards Heath. We've since been in touch with our estates team, and they've confirmed that yes, the business is receiving a 3-month period of sort of rent-free. However, that's not specific to allow them to pay for fit-out. They've stipulated that fit-out is the tenant's responsibility, while of course, yes, they are saving some revenue there. It's standard across all of our leases for that to be the case. The plans that have been provided by the business so far have been approved by our team and the landlord as well, so they're content there. But if you'd like any further information, I'm happy to provide it.
I think if your team's looked into it and you're satisfied, that will do for me. Thank you for answering the question. And that's it. So just before we move, actually no, move on to the vote if we may. So colleagues, we'd like to approve the recommended grants with the exceptions obviously in relation to Swarovski Architects, that's being increased in value, and that Pera Midtown Marketing is being withdrawn, subject to potentially being put forward again. So if members would like to vote on that basis, please. And I'm delighted to say that's unanimously agreed. Thank you very much. Can I just make one comment just to take away and discuss with colleagues? In one of the later papers, we've got a similar thing, but then there's little paragraphs which just give a little bit of background, and I find them really useful. So I know it's a little bit of additional work for you, but it might be helpful if you could think about perhaps including that in future reports. It just gives us a clearer flavour and means I won't ask silly questions. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to agenda item 8, corporate grant schemes. This is the Community Grants and COVID Grants Review, and I'd like to hand over to Regina Chowdhury to introduce and tell us all about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this paper presents a review of the grants awarded during 2019 and 2021, and which includes the COVID grants awarded in December and March. And the reason why it's the 2 years, 19 and 21, it's because we weren't able to present it the 2019-2020 because of COVID and all the other issues, so we've sort of put them together. And the paper shows feedback from awarded applicants, and I think the panel will note that there's a wide variety of grants that were awarded for different uses. There was quite a nice spread across the district, and there was a lot of positive impact of the projects that were awarded.
Thank you. Short and sweet. Colleagues, any comments that you would like to make or questions? This report is for noting. Whilst you're thinking about, if I can, I'll launch into a couple of comments myself. First of all, I think one of the bullets in the report that for this value grants of 100,000 provided match funding in excess of 580,000. So I think that just shows how well the grants have worked, and it's superb to see that it's encouraged that extra investment. And without embarrassing my colleague, well, I'm going to embarrass my colleague to my right, Councillor Demir, who held the grants cabinet thing. I think the whole grants process during COVID by this council was exemplary, and I've heard it from businesses and everywhere. So I'd like to recall my thanks and congratulations to the officer. I think the grants and revenue benefit team during that period did an outstanding job, above and beyond. Right, St John's Felbridge. I'm trying to read my notes and chair at the same time, and I am but a man. Yeah, so the St John's Felbridge, I wonder, have you got any update on how that's carried on since then? Because obviously it's great that these grants did this work during the time, but obviously it's best value if it's sustainable and the project continues after we've got it started.
The grant report which they submitted, and they report on the actual spend. We have, I can go back and catch up in terms of, did they carry on, but it was a one-off project, like 6 weeks, for what we paid for. But I mean, there is always an option for me to go back and ask,
Thanks. I mean, I'd
did you take
personally be
forward?
interested because it's great
Yeah,
funding one-off projects, but, the best value for our money is if it becomes something that's sustainable, which is great. Colleagues, if anything else you want to jump... Councillor Demir, I'll give myself a rest.
Thank you. Yes, I was pleased because if we're helping 6,000 residents, that's brilliant. And also that the 14 Silver Sunday projects. But I tell you what really pleases me is in your summary where it says 10 groups use the funds to realign their services. Now that is really good news, whether it's for the community or economic. So I just wanted to record that I think this is what the grants are for. So well done, thank you. That was it, Mr. Chairman.
Not at all. Thank you, Councillor Demir. Councillor Belsey.
Thank you, Chairman. No, really pleased to read the report. Really pleased to see that the grants are shared across the district and district-wide. I know sometimes we always feel that they're not, but it's nice when it comes to pass that they are. And what I was going to say was it's really nice, really, I remember a lot of the grants actually being given at the time, so I remember the discussion about that Toyota and things like that, car parking at Albourne and Sayers Common and sort of whether, and so it's nice to know that projects have come to pass. It was just really more about whether there are other ways we can communicate some of these sort of, these types of good news stories to residents and thoughts, how we can share it, because I think a lot of people don't really see the role that the council plays in this helping supporting their communities.
I think that's something that we really need to look at, how we promote the actual good stories that come out of the grants, because we announce, that we've spent this money, but actually the good stories come when the project comes to fruition. So there is definitely scope to do some promotion around that.
So perhaps like in Mid Sussex Matters, or
Definitely.
and on our website
Even,
maybe some, like some of the case studies or whatever, which might inspire others to come forward.
And even encouraging where we've spent the money, maybe in the different parishes and the town councils, to take them up and to promote them and to see the benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, an excellent point, and thank you for offering to take that away. It is important. It's not just about blowing our trumpet, it's also about giving people in the community ideas so that they could submit grants to do their own projects. So in relation to that, and perhaps if you would like to kind of just think about that and circulate something to members after the meeting, including the update on St John's Felbridge, and if you could also include the Rotary Club one as well, which is another cracking project. And it's like, did it carry on? Is it sustainable? I just got one little bit of clarification. That's number 18, Crawley Down Football, Phoenix Netball Club and East Grinstead Hockey Club. Because in the summary, there was one for sports. Is that because this is, they share the facilities at East Grinstead? So is that a bit?
They did it as a joint application, so it came as one application rather than two.
Okay, was it all the works carried out at one site? Because obviously it's that big netball facility at East Grinstead. I wasn't sure, was it or the Crawley Phoenix using that facility?
I'll have to check that before I answer.
Okay, it doesn't affect.
I can feed.
Thanks.
Get back to you.
Just wanted a clarification. Right, I've got nothing more, colleagues, nothing more. So that report is for noting, so I will consider it noted. And let's move on to agenda item 9, corporate grant schemes, community grants. Once more, Regina, you're in the hot seat.
So this second paper details 6 cabinet grant applications, 3 of which have met the set criteria and have been recommended for funding. And I think the panel should, the one that stands out is the carers application, where we've recommended the full amount of the project, which is 9.5, rather than the what they've asked for, because the panel felt, the assessment team felt that it was really closely aligned with our priorities, and especially with what we're doing through our older people's activities contract. So we thought to really give it a go and get the project going, we would like to recommend it be funded fully. But yeah, any questions?
Thank you very much. over to colleagues. Shall we just look at that one first and then move on to the rest? And this is in relation to, as you say, the proposal from officers that actually we exceed the normal grant limit of 5,000, which makes me feel a little uncomfortable. It's about precedent, but obviously we do have the discretion to do so. It's within our powers, and it's whether we feel that the reasoning provided in the papers is sufficient to see that increase, which is quite significant. So, Councillor Belsey.
Thank you, Chairman. I share your concerns. I'm not averse to occasionally funding more than the requested amount where it's clear, but obviously this is quite a significant increase, and I was wondering why the organisation came with 5,000 with a project cost of 9.5, and whether they had a plan for funding for the discrepant, for the difference. And as a result, does that mean that that's 4,500 less funding that we've got to give to another project? So just quite useful to understand whether Regina thinks that the project would have been able to get off the ground with some other funding available, which is presumably why they only came forward for 5. Thank you.
In their grant application, they've put in plans to fundraise, so they obviously have a plan to fundraise and possibly use some of their own reserves or whatever it is they're funding from the organisation. But when we looked at it, we just felt it sat really well when we were doing our Older People's Commission, which now sits with Age UK, and the underrepresentation of male carers and male older males in the service was something that we picked up, and that's one of the focus for our contracts. But this really specific work could really focus it and target in, and I think with what we've said around the impact of COVID, bereavement, and the fact that there is already underrepresentation of sort of male. The male demographic in services, and then the male carers would be, and it is a significant increase on the 5,000. But obviously they can only ask for 5,000 with our criteria. I think the advantage is that it could get off the ground straight away.
Can I come back to
Yeah, please do.
It's just that I don't disagree with you. I just think when we've only got a paragraph to go on, sometimes it feels just a bit light on the detail to understand. It's difficult to convey the powerfulness of what you're describing just in a paragraph of a few sentences. Firstly, when you have to set out the background to what they do, then the proposals come forward, and sort of one or two sentences doesn't really. It's hard to convey. But I mean, I can hear the passion with which you are speaking about the project. And when you do that, so presumably, I know you said that we'll organise a calendar of events to encourage engagement and peer support. I think we've previously looked at things like that, and that it's not just events, hopefully it's then sustainable going forward. So it's not just like one-offs, it's something that you think will provide some longevity to the support of these people.
Thank you.
I think it's important also that even though if it is decided to give them the full amount, it's important to make them understand that it is seed funding and it's not going to be repeat funding. So they've got to make it sustainable, and so those events have got to be self-sustaining, and whatever they do has got to be self-sustaining.
Thank you.
Thank you. And obviously I discussed this with Councillor Webster earlier today, and he had similar concerns, as did I. Although I have to say, reading this and thinking about it, I think the point you make about some of the male staff is underfunded, but also we know that there's a massive social care crisis in terms of hospital places. Hospitals can't empty out because there's not enough places in homes, and I think that the role of carers in the community is going to be crucial over the next few years. So I have to say I'm considering softening my stance, but I'm going to wait to hear from Councillor Demir.
Well, on this particular one, I do have to say I was concerned that we were doubling our grant and in effect paying for it all. But I do understand why. But you mentioned just now they would fundraise or take it from reserves. Now, it would be handy to know what their reserves were, because, as I think my colleagues have already mentioned, we don't want to give away so much that somebody else might not get a grant who is doing equally as good stuff. I've got another point, but not on this one.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think
right,
we'll
Mr.
we'll
Chairman?
deal with this one and
Yeah.
vote on it and then do the rest, if that's okay.
I can get that information for you. I don't know if you want that before you make a decision on the, I mean, we
Ideally.
do allow them, I think it's 6 months, they are allowed to have reserves, but it's, you know, it's up to their discretion how they spend it. But I think the reasoning really behind it to fund it fully just goes back to the situation as it is now in the with the background of COVID, with the background of bereavements, with the underrepresentation of men in these types of services, and particularly carers. We know that there is a gap in what sort of support we have in Mid Sussex, and I think the assessment team felt that, you know, this is something that could meet that gap in services.
Thank you. Did you want to come back, Councillor?
Yes, it was just a quick one. Third of the way down the para, it says the commissioning of older people that identified men as a priority group. Was this research that it's done, and when?
Well, this is based because we've had a contract with Age UK for a number of years now, and with the stats you can see that's all. It's always like more females rather than males, and we've seen that trend is not improving. You know, so the focus on that contract was you've got to go out and try and do activities that will attract men, not exclusively male activities, but activities that
Thanks.
you might think. So it is based on evidence.
Thank you.
Thanks. And you're right, it is. It's just the way, certainly that generation, the males tend to have less established community links, whereas obviously the ladies have had, you know, the school gates and all that kind of stuff. And, so I think that's totally valid. Councillor Belsey.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just echoing that comment as I deal with Regina, as I'm Chairman of Age UK East Grinstead, so I know that Age UK has been mentioned, and over 2/3 of our people regularly are women rather than men, and we have been trying to look at trying to get more men attracted to our services within the community. So I do agree that men are underrepresented in terms of use of our services. The other point I was going to make was quite often we would normally be told, I think in the report, if a company or if an organisation had huge reserves, I think that quite often comes up, doesn't it, as a factor? And I'm sure you wouldn't. I know you're not trying to put words in your mouth, but I mean, yeah, I'm happy to support the recommendation as put forward by the officer.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Belsey. I was thinking about suggesting a halfway house, but a good old-fashioned fudge. But I think, given what we've heard, we'll let Councillor DeMere. Should we vote on this specific item? If we can arrange that, please. So if we can just do a vote on this item, and then we'll go to the rest of the report, seeing as we have. So those in favour or otherwise, please vote accordingly now. Well, I'm not going to wait for the graph, but happily that's unanimous. So thank you very much. So colleagues, thank you for indulging me there. If we just move on to the other grants, any questions or comments? Whilst you'll wait for the vote to go away, so I'll just keep talking. These are the paragraphs, as I said earlier, I found really useful. So thank you very much. A very good report. The query I had was... No, I can't find it. No, that was it, I think. Colleagues, do you have any other questions? Councillor DeMere.
Yes, my question on the foresight, which I am totally in favour of, but seeking to deliver these newsletters. So presumably, once again, they'll be told this is seed funding and they've got to pay for it themselves. It was just that 6 newsletters to 319 people seems to be terribly expensive per newsletter, unless I can't do my maths properly.
I imagine it's something to do with the sight impairedness.
No,
Can I
I
ask a
think it's-
question on top of that? Then you can answer. Actually, go on,
Sorry.
Regina, you're in.
No, go on, do them all together.
No, the other one was, just some clarification on the last line, quite good, I'd like, foresight vision should ensure that they're able to fund the project cost 2023 as it will not qualify for repeat funding. I was wondering when you were asking if you could just talk to that, please, and let us know how you feel that looks.
I think the newsletters are on the expensive side because they're going to do it in Braille and provide that sort of that sensory. It's not just printed format. And this project was a pilot that they did, and the success of the pilot, we didn't fund the pilot, and so we're funding it in a sense. It's a new project for us, so we're not funding something that was in existence. They did a pilot and now they want to improve it and enhance it. And obviously our criteria is that we'll seed fund it, and then it has to be self-sustaining, and it won't be, you can't come back for repeat funding for the same project unless you've decided to enhance it or change it or whatever.
Thank you. I'm totally, I think it's a brilliant idea, and I haven't taken on board, of course, you've got to do it in Braille. So that means that it's going to be more expensive.
Thank you. Yeah, Regina, just on that last point about the future funding, have you any idea, as you said, we all know that they can't come back. Have they got plans? Are they going to accept advertising? Are we trying to support them to ensure this does carry on?
I think, in the application form, they've detailed the 1-year plan, and I think, we've based our decision on that 1-year plan, and we don't we don't ask them to say, oh, it's how you're going to make it sustainable. We just tell them that, oh, it has to be sustainable. So we're assuming, that they won't be able to get the money if, they won't come back.
Thank you. Great. My last comments are just in relation to the recommendations to those organisations where no grant was awarded. I imagine probably my colleagues agree with me, they're actually all excellent organisations. It's just about fitting the criteria. Kangaroo is obviously very well known to us and already in receipt of support from the chairman's charity this year. So excellent projects, but I personally accept the reasons for those being refused. Colleagues, are we happy to move to a vote?
Yep.
So,
Can I just?
yes, absolutely, go ahead.
So just, no, thanks. I just really echoing your comments, Chairman. No particular, I think the Group B STREP support, either based in Haywards Heath or the founders are sort of Mid-Sussex, Haywards Heath based, and I can imagine that they would like to sort of reflect that in the local community. Perhaps, would it be possible to get an update at the next meeting, just confirmation that, what happens next if we are recommending to other, so Mid-Sussex Partnership Health Subgroup, for example, or something, just...
Do that.
Yeah, just that's happened, and at least we've sort of, felt positive towards the project, but not unfortunately for this funding, but hoping that it will be positively received in the right funding forums.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and obviously add that in the minutes to the other list of follow-ups that you've kindly been persuaded to do for us. Right, so back to the vote, colleagues, in relation to the recommendations on page 25. And I will wait for the screen because I've realised our microphones don't work until it's all happened. And again, happy to report that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, once again, Regina. And now moving on to agenda item 10, corporate grant schemes, release of section 106 contributions, and handing over to Elaine Clark.
Thank you very much. The panel requested to consider recommendations in relation to one new application from Ashton Ground Community Centre and an amendment to an existing award to Haywards Heath Tennis Club. So starting with the tennis club, in paragraphs 7 to 12 of the covering report, provides the background to the award. They were granted 106,598 in February 2022, subject to various conditions, and those things have taken them a bit of time to work through. They had to establish a new constitution because they were an unincorporated organisation. They needed to do that before they could deal with the lease arrangements with the council, which have now been drafted and agreed and are ready to be signed. And they also had to get planning approval for the project. So they're on target. Everything that they set out to do has been achieved. But in the meantime, of course, all of these capital projects, the costs are rising. So they got revised quotes, and the costs have increased. Now, they had actually increased, I think, by about 30,000 in total. But they have managed to bring down some costs in other areas. So actually, the total project cost has increased by 14,681 by making some savings, and they've requested that the council provide an additional £10,000 to help them cover that increase. They're a relatively small club. They've only got a turnover of about £10,000 a year. They've got reserves of 24, so they've done very well. But obviously, this will require them to use, a fair amount of that, £20,000 of that, towards this project, which is stretching it for them. One of the major costs was about bringing in power, because obviously at the moment it's basically a shed that they're using as a pavilion, and this will allow them to have an electrical supply into the park. So that's been quite expensive. There is Section 106 available from Haywards Heath Developments that we can use to fund this. So that's what we've recommended, is that we increase the grant. So previously it was 87% of the total project cost, and now it amounts to 85% of the total project cost. So actually, as a percentage, it has decreased, but the overall amount will increase. Do you want to deal with that one before I go on to Ashing Ground, or shall I carry on?
I think carry on, thanks.
Carry on,
yeah.
yep.
That's right, colleagues, yeah.
So the Ashing Ground Community Centre have submitted an application for £10,863,000 towards the cost of an audio-visual system for the community centre, which will allow them to show community cinema events, and also when people hire the building, they'll be able to have a screen that they can use for training and conferences and that kind of thing. So it's a general modern, bringing the centre up to date really, and modernising the facilities. They used to hire, they used to bring someone in, but this will actually allow them to purchase the equipment and have it permanently installed in the building. And I must say, with that one, you had the conversation earlier about reserves, and that there was the formatting of the report went a bit skew-if, and you can see that it looks as if they've got huge reserves, but actually a lot of that is capitalised cost of the building. So their reserves are actually only about £30,000 in total for the year. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, certainly, go to Ashing Ground community. I just have Ashing Ground envy. I think it's a cracking thing, and I'm fully supportive of it. And I suspect maybe hopefully one day they'll even connect into our new gigabit speed broadband and be able to do even more whizzy, amazing things from that. The question, so yeah, that's all I've got to say on that one. On the tennis club, very much in favour. It's great. Bit of a general point, because obviously we've got an awful lot of projects out there that are Section 106 funded and funded by this, that are ongoing, not happening, and obviously inflation is now a fact of life. Some of us are old enough to remember when it was twice what it is now, but for the current time, this is very, very new, and organisations and funding streams haven't quite worked out yet how to deal with it. So obviously we need to do all we can to get people to get these projects going as fast as they can. It'd be interesting, maybe if you could have a discussion with the chairman when he's back, because I would be interested in seeing a report and kind of what all these projects are out there because this is going to be a problem for everybody. If we start dealing with piecemeal, then we may not get the kind of priorities and the limited funds available. So I wonder if we could think about that perhaps in discussion with the chairman for the next meeting. Having said that, I'm supportive of the two things. Well, I'll hand over to my colleagues. Councillor De Mere.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, on the Ashton Grand one, explain to me. I think I heard you right, but it does say unaudited accounts show a deficit of 21,000.
Yes, I think so. But that's just on the year, but obviously they've got,
They have got reserves.
But they've got reserves to cover that. So overall, at the moment, they've got about 30,000 in reserves.
Okay, and my other, although I think it's a brilliant idea and it's something we must support, I just noticed that they've got 4 employees, which seems rather excessive for a community centre. I just wondered, are these part-time or some voluntary or something?
Yeah, they did send me, I haven't got the details to hand, they did send me a list of who the employees are, and they are part-time posts. They're people that just come in and do, you know, cleaning or caretaking for a few hours. So it's not for.
But it's something that they're paying national insurance and PAYE for?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And apart from that, yes, I agree with the chairman about looking at it as a whole.
Thank you. I hadn't noted the employee status, and it was a good challenging comment. Thank you. Councillor Belsey.
Thank you, Chairman. It was going to be about the cinema as well. And just I suppose concern, I see it, you know, the difficulties that charities or non-profit organisations at the moment. Obviously, that's quite a substantial deficit last year compared to their cash reserves. So, and then I just note that that wants to provide a community cinema showing films for local people at an affordable cost. And I suppose that just does concern me that obviously we're investing significantly into the cinema, and I want it to be affordable, but at the same time it's also got to be reasonable for the business plan to stack up as well. So I just hope that the business plan shows that the ticket price and the number of viewings and the number of people that will come to these events will hopefully be more than before, because last year I think they got £2,000 of income from film showings, and so I would hope that they're going to be able to demonstrate a step change, notwithstanding that they want to keep prices down.
The issue about that is that previously probably all of that money went on, you know, paying for someone to actually come in and show the films. So it was a you know, break-even kind of activity, whereas if they've invested in, or if we've supported them to invest in the equipment, that will be income to the centre, so it should be more profitable. Yes, and with regards to the deficit, I think a lot of the community centres have just been through a very difficult time with COVID. Most of them have got, you know, although they've had some subsidy and grants, you know, through the rate system, you know, a lot of them have struggled. So I'm hoping that will be now an upward trend, that things are getting back to normal.
Thank you.
Councillor De Mere.
Sorry, it was, I've just got one other, which I'm sure I probably know the answer to, but I just wanted to make absolutely sure. That the recommendation for the tennis club is for 106 monies. Is that monies, it says on the top of page 35 that 106 is enhancement to capacity for sport, community buildings and other purposes as a result of residential development. I'm only asking because very often that 106 money has got to be for sport, or it's got to be for transport, or it's got to be, we are sure that we're not stopping somebody else getting it that might have needed it better. Is that English? But you know what I mean.
It is. I mean, jumping, because that was going to be my comment.
Oh, right.
I'll declare an interest, because obviously we've got 7,000 for the Mayfair Public House sits in Bentswood, and obviously we have a community project building in Bentswood. So my question was just going to be, are these unearmarked monies at the moment, hoping we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. So thank you, Councillor Demir. My thoughts echoed exactly.
Yes, I mean, I think in this instance, it's a competitive process, and it's, in a sense, it's first come, first serve. If people put in a bid, it will be considered alongside anything else that's submitted. And in this particular round, we only received one application. These are a few of, well, there are very few unallocated resources left that are available to use flexibly to support these kind of schemes. What's happening more and more with the Section 106 is because we are identifying the project when we sign the agreement with the developer, we're actually having to then invite bids to meet that requirement. So yes, so I think this is becoming harder to do, is just to find additional bits of money for things if it's not already specified.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I understand the difficulty. I think I'm still supportive of this because the tennis court in particular, it's something in the heart of Haywards Heath, and it's a club that we want to support, and they've worked very hard to get this off the ground. Colleagues, any other questions or comments? We will move to the vote, whether we wish to accept in full the recommendations of the officers. And I'm happy to say that that is unanimous. So I can now bring the meeting to conclude. Thank you very much indeed, officers, for your time and your reports. Thank you very much, colleagues, and those that have facilitated the meetings. And colleagues like to stay in our seats for 10 seconds before the broadcast is ceased. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.